When deep love is mentioned, immediately the variety of people that are volunteer, or even myself, I just fall into this trap, which is that deep love is an organization, deep love is a ministry. Terms that we've really invented in the last few hundred years within especially the western side of the world, where all of a sudden we hear a church and then we associate it with a place. We realize that others, the body of Christ, those that are listening right now, would hopefully learn what deep love is, which is an ask, it's a call, it's a reminder that they are surrounded by opportunities to love deeply, love well, and love authentically.
What's up, y'all? This is Chase.
This is Raul.
And welcome back to the Deep Love Podcast. And we're unveiling an exciting new segment today called Host Reflections, where we take a few minutes right after an episode is done to look back on it and just what we've been chewing on from the conversation over the last couple weeks, over the last few days. And for today's conversation, we're going to be looking back on our episode with Jair, where we talked a lot about service, we talked a lot about greatness, and just maybe what us Americans may be feeling whenever it comes to those topics. And so we're excited for y'all, if you weren't able to listen to the episode, to glean just a little bit, of our cliff notes, and then you can maybe go back and revisit it. Yeah. But Raul, what was maybe one of the key takeaways or something you've been thinking about since our conversation with Jair?
Yeah, so before I go to the scriptures, which is where I think we should start for sure, I would say that, why does this matter? Why should you listen to us talk about, what this episode was about? Outside of, we highly encourage you to go and watch that show. It definitely speaks counterculture and very much defines what, for a Christian, a believer, a follower of Jesus, it looks like to be great, to excel, in contrast to the Andrew Tate's corporate ladder type of approach of climbing it to find excellence or find greatness or find notoriety or the title. No matter what, he really comes in with this matter of just shifting the view on how greatness is achieved by the believer, especially for those that are in high school and college or even about to go into school, or those that are like just retired and empty nesters. Like, what does greatness look like? Because that journey doesn't end the day you hit your mountaintop, so to speak, that you've been chasing after. And so I thought, hey, why not really reflect on that as we're going to talk about today? Because I think it's such a powerful topic that we all need to dive deep, because we spend our lives chasing after something that eventually kind of fizzles in our hands like sand. And I thought Jesus did a great job in Matthew 23. He doesn't need my affirmation, but I think that's where we glean to. He was just done or about to go sharper in his correction to what we would say in his day, people that were striving to achieve greatness, thought religiosity, checking off all the boxes, finding what they believed was the epitome of being a faithful Jew at the time. These were Pharisees, Sadducees, the religious leaders, the elites of the time. And he corrects them and he reconciles all that in Matthew 23 after a whole tangent I'm not going to get into, by saying such a simple message, which is, the greatest among you shall be your servant, not a servant. He says your servant, meaning he's already like correcting them, but now he challenges them in and itself by saying, hey, look at who is serving you, and that is the greatest among you. And I thought that would really shock most of us, but it definitely shocked me in the moment, because although we serve together, we serve in environments that maybe not the average person finds himself, and that's what the whole point of this podcast is, to invite those to come alongside us and serve, or to acknowledge that service is an invitation available to all wherever you are at. That Matthew 23 really sets the stage for that. So I thought that would be a really good place for us to talk on. I did get some notes that I was going to share on, but I think it was just a very simple point that I could go on a long tangent on, but it was just looking at Jesus' life, faithful disciples, people of the time that we would say we would glean from Paul and so on and so forth. There's a simple message that we all have to come to terms with if we're going to be followers of Jesus, or have been, which is hard. The suck is what I like to call it. The things that we do not desire, the hard, has to exist for greatness to be a result. Meaning we always ask for the result. How do we become more important? How do we gain the platform? How do we gain the money? How do we get the wife? How do we get the XYZ? But we never acknowledge the process. And the most valuable, intricate things that we aspire to have that actually have meaning and purpose are nothing if without the process. And Jesus gives us only one ingredient for that process to exist and produce good fruit, which is hardship, suffering. And greatness in and itself only happens through somebody that was willing to become lower and less and letting Jesus promote them in the process.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like, thinking to today, a lot of times servants are naturally, sadly, like, denigrated and looked down on.
Yeah.
And so that already makes service hard. Whenever what you're doing is probably difficult in and of itself, but also to be looked down on in our modern society for being the one to, like, serve and help someone. It's like a double whammy there that we kind of have to get over, but it is also for our spiritual benefit too.
That's right.
So, like, get over whatever negative reputation people try to put on us, whatever humiliation or jokes people try to put forward on us to our expense. It's to our ultimate spiritual benefit.
That's
and
right.
So hopefully that can be a little bit more, like, comforting to us as we embrace that.
Yeah, and just, to go back, I mean, this scripture, this is Paul talking, but Romans 5 just connects so well with Matthew 23, which is red lettering, right? It's Jesus is talking, but in Romans 5:3, it says, not only that, and that he's saying, no different than therefore, always find out what it's there for. Not only that, meaning read the context, but I'll tell you what it is. It's Paul saying that the faithfulness, the struggle, as he says, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, meaning we don't just take faith, we don't just stand, we rejoice. Meaning he elevates the standard, knowing that suffering produces endurance, stamina, the ability to keep going when we don't want to keep going, we want to wave the white flag, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame. It says in another translation, it does not disappoint. And that is something we have to hang on to, right? It's a process, kind of like an amazing meal. I cook a lot, right? Like the process to get to that point where we take a bite came with probably maybe some knife cuts, maybe some burns, maybe the possibility of messing it up, so the insecurity that can happen, especially if you're going to serve somebody else. But the process is what makes that bite taste so good if you truly did it with a pure heart in the process.
Yeah, 100%. For me, I know the main thing that I've been looking back on is, and I commented on it in our conversation with him, but he mentioned how he thinks Americans owe the world greatness, and that we, because of our luxuries and because of the resources that we have available to us, like, we owe the world greatness. And me and him had talked about that a few years back, and I brought it back to him to put it within the context of, okay, you just mentioned that greatness is serving. And so, like, would we say that Americans are the best servants in the world? And it's been a really convicting and just like poking me in the side like type of question, because I don't know if we are. And even reflecting on myself, I'm like, I know that my pride gets in the way a lot, and I know that I could be so much of a better servant of Christ and of people than I am. And I wonder, like, what is causing Americans to not embrace the same level of servanthood that, like, our friends in Uganda have, where, like, they will, without a doubt, take whatever food they have on their table and give it to you, even if there's no more in the pantry, and take the coat off of their back and give it to you. To whereas here, we so often only give or serve out of our abundance, and not whenever it's difficult for us. And it's this, like, relationship between sacrifice and service, and is like,
What you're saying is that sacrifice has to exist for service to truly mean anything.
That's what I'm thinking. That's like the question that's in my mind. And like, I think that's the case. Because for generosity to take place, there has to be a level of sacrifice as well. Or else you're just giving something that's irrelevant to you. It's the same thing with virtues of like, you're not virtuous if you're harmless.
That's right.
Like a rabbit's not virtuous.
That's right.
And so you're not meek if you don't have strength.
That's right.
And so I'm like, well, is it serving if it's not sacrifice? And us as Americans, just in that, like, we don't like to sacrifice. We like to have our cake and eat it too. Just all of that. And so it's not really many answers that I think that I have right now, but just continuing to ask these questions of myself and of Americans is like, well, sure, maybe we serve, maybe we give, but what is holding us back from sacrifice? And for me, like, to be candid, like, sometimes for me it's like inadequacy, because like next week we have the serve opportunity with the prison coming up, and I haven't been with y'all in a few years.
Yeah.
And to be frank, it's because like I feel a bit of insecurity about that and inadequacy, to where I'm like, what do I have to bring to the guys in there? Like, would they connect with the type of conversation that I have? Would that even be welcome and flourishing in the setting that we'll be in? Just different things that I question myself in, and that I think a lot of Americans share in, is like, well, what do I have to give? Which I understand where it's coming from. Ultimately, it's like, you know, our relationship with the Lord that helps us get over that. But those are all just kind of questions I've been thinking it through since our conversation with Jair.
Yeah, and we talked about, right, like this idea that, like, you know, a person that gets to this country, hopefully the right way, but gets to this country because he has something to contrast living in a different country, like myself, who gets here and then understands what life could have looked like, right? Colombian, come from a place where it's inundated with the cartels and etc. A lot of corruption everywhere, but more in your face as a child. And so when you get here, I mean, you have two choices, right? You either have this nostalgic effect where you want to bring your past into your present, or you have a deep a deep moment with, may that be the Lord, or may that be with your family, may that be with whoever, of just reflecting on the fact that, like, you feel indebted. You somewhat feel like the school, the education, the access, the ability to find food in the way that we can find food, the ability to have what we can have in this country, only happens through a level of sacrifice. For myself, was my parents. And so now you have this indebtedness. However, it shouldn't have this indebtedness where now you feel ashamed, which I don't think Jair is speaking to. He's speaking to this idea that we have to see what Christ has done, not to make us feel forced into serving, but like a mother who raises a child, at some point that child, if he was raised, mother and father, by good parents, they're not going to hover that over you, make you feel terrible because they had to sacrifice to raise you. But you're going to have this burden in your heart to want to help them when they're in need. At some point, there's a transition that happens. And there's that happens that should happen if you understand what happens at the cross for the believer, right? And the best way he calls us into that, to bring value to what we think we should find value in as a Christian, is by serving. Sacrificing our time, our pleasures, our yeses here to our yeses there. And I think that's where we find greatness, because we find him in the process of that.
Yeah, I agree. And even though I grew up in the States and like my parents were born and raised here, like I feel a similar sentiment that you do, of like owing them in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Of wanting to continue to honor them, carry the legacy forward, kind of all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
So I definitely get you there. But yeah, y'all, that'll be a wrap for us today. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'd invite you to go ahead and subscribe to the page to join us on the journey. Comment below any takeaways that you had from our conversation today, like all the other stuff that you know how to do. Also, in one of these corners is going to pop up our website. If you're interested in serving with us or looking at just any of the serve opportunities that we have, feel free to go to that website, check out some of the things that are upcoming on our calendar, and we'd love to see you there. And yeah, we'll just leave you with the typical question of what does deep love mean to you? Comment that down below. We'd love to hear it. Much love. God bless.
God bless you.